Welcome back to the IBFP. Here's your host, Boxing New.
The Boogeyman versus the Monster. Look, let's break it down honestly and objectively as possible. And when you look at it, you see that David Benavidez versus Demetrius Andrade is being labeled the Monster versus the Boogeyman. And I'm just going to tell you that's not true at all. This guy's not a monster, and that guy's not a Boogeyman. Now, I respect both fighters. David Benavidez, a quality, good, all-around fighter. Demetrius Andrade is a quality, good, all-around fighter. I respect both guys. No hate, just facts. When you look at the facts that Demetrius Andrade has never been a boogeyman, this guy fights his ass. And if you look at his resume and you look at his history, he's been openly ducking fights for years. He ducked Janabek openly, saying he's not wasting his time. He's not a big name, while he was begging on his knees Chris Eubank to fight him for $1 million. So you can beg Chris Eubank at 160, but openly duck your mandatory in Janabek, the most dangerous fighter at that time that he could have fought. Now, here's the funny thing. Chris Eubank was knocked out by Canelo's leftovers. Chris Eubank was already outboxed by Billy Joe Saunders. But you got Demetrius Andrade begging Chris Eubank for a fight while throwing his belt in the trash when it came to Janabek. Make that make sense. That's a duck. Anybody calling this man a boogeyman is a fanboy and ignoring Janabek. I mean, let's just be honest. This is the same Demetrius Andrade who ducked Jermell Charlo that Canelo fought, who ducked Landy Lada that Canelo fought. This is the same guy who ducked Sergey Deverenchenko in many other fights. This man's ducking has gone back a long way in his entire career. This man has never been a boogeyman. Let's just be honest. When you look at the facts, you do your research, you see this man is no boogeyman. He's not been a boogeyman. He's a loudmouth. That's all he is. Now, when you look at David Benavidez, he's no monster. A monster doesn't get dropped by a 168-pound journeyman when David Benavidez is a natural cruiserweight. I mean, think about it. David Benavidez doesn't even belong at 168. Naturally, he should be at cruiserweight, and this man was dropped by a journeyman at 168. Make that make sense. He's oversized for the division, and yet you get dropped by a journeyman? How are you a monster? Are we changing the definition of what a true monster is? And we're talking about a guy who should be at cruiserweight, who's going to a decision against Caleb Plant, who had gassed out, who has already been knocked out and wore down, and yet you still couldn't get him out? Make that make sense. Don't ever tell me this man's a monster because he's done nothing to prove it. Because men lie, women lie, but the facts don't lie.